going to take a few more minutes of your time now to talk about different settings that we have and different types of panels that we're using to create RGBW and RGBCA full spectrum lighting. So to start with, on the left side of our camera feeds here, we can see, I believe this is in RGB mode. If we toggle between the RGB and the RGBW, you can really tell the difference you can see it in the strawberry and the flowers very easily. RGB to RGBW, you see the reds and the oranges become very saturated, oversaturated, or overexposed in the RGB. And somebody asked me a very good question earlier about, well, maybe we can apply DaVinci Resolve Grader or something to this into onset feeds and correct for this. But what happens is that if you correct for, let's say, the oranges. In the RGB feed, you can see that the oranges that are on the vine there turn into tomatoes. If we applied some color correction in DaVinci Resolve to pull that red into an orange, how will that affect the colors of the flowers or the colors of the strawberry? So you can't just do something on set to say, let's take the red in or let's change the hue of this, because the composition itself has just lost its color balance. When you look at the RGBW, the oranges are orange, the flowers have their gradation from the orange and pale yellow. And if we compare, again, the RGB to RGBCA, you can see the same type of effect. So on the RGB, the oversaturation of red, the yellow and green are a little bit different. And then if we take an examination of the RGBW and RGBCA, so RGBW has some it's more optimal right around the peak white point of the W pixel. So it produces, for our tile, we chose a 4000 Kelvin, produces a very, very good warm white. And if we look at how the canary yellow, if you look at the color checker above the grayscale, there's blue, green, red, canary yellow, or I guess yellow, magenta, and cyan. That yellow and the yellow of the lemon, when you go take a look over there, on the RGBW feed, they're a little bit closer together in hue and saturation than they are naturally in our scene. If we look naturally in our scene, you'll see a difference there with the RGBCA. And that comes from two factors. Mainly that the RGBCA is much more evenly spectrally matched because we can modulate between the red and green and between the blue and the green. So those are the three variants of color that we have. Both are available. Very eager to talk about some productions and demos with your teams. With that, while we have both the Megapixel and Brompton representatives here, if there's anybody that has a few quick questions, I'll open that up.
No, I wanted to comment about the differentiation, because we were talking about maybe trying to compensate these color shifts that are happening. And it is true that it will modify more colors in the environment, but it's not only about the foreground elements. The fact is that if you modify the color compensation of that they don't look correct because obviously the light is incorrect, the background will have the right lighting. So if you modify anything in post-production, you're going to destroy the whole image. Yeah. So we are basically saving a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
For post-production.
When I was talking with someone earlier about bit depth, and the cameras that we buy and use today in virtual production, as amazing as these new RE cameras are and Sony cameras are, there's a limitation to their dynamic range and their bit depth. So if you capture some light on scene and on set, and then you go into grading and editorial, there's a step before color grading where they apply color correction. They apply some corrections to exposure or a few other things to camera feeds before editorial grading. And if they use a very high level of mathematical power to make corrections to the footage, like in the case of RGB, so they do a lot of power window, they modify this, takes a lot of time to balance the composure to neutrality. It's very hard to key the foreground and background in virtual production, cause some issues there. Then you end up using all your mathematical power for corrective action instead of using your mathematical power for editorial color grading. And what you want on set as producers and as cinematographers is that the lighting is not dictating your color choice. The lighting should apply enough light to the scene that the camera can see it. The exposure is neutral. and then you can editorially make the choice that you want to make. And I think both RGBW and RGBCA are the step that it takes to get from where we are today to that global illumination revolution in visual effects.